Today on the 01581 Let's Talk, a conversation about belonging. Hope you enjoy the show. Hi, and welcome to this episode of the 01581 Let's Talk. I'm the host of the show, Shelby Marshall. I also serve as a member of the select board here in Westborough, and most of the time we're talking about things related to town government, projects and the like. But today we're not going to do that. Today I'm joined by a guest. Her name is Kate Storm. She's a doctoral student at the University of Southern California. And today's topic is about belonging, and in this context, belonging in the town of Westborough. So without further ado, Kate, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shelby.
Thanks so much for coming on. So apropos that we're talking about belonging, we just came back from, last night was a fall town meeting. It was great to see so many folks out. First, introduce yourself, a little bit about how long you've been here, where do you come from, how long you've been part of belonging in Westborough.
So my name is Kate Storm, and I have been a resident here for about 9 years. My youngest is going to celebrate her 9th birthday in 10 days, she told me this morning. So, and we moved here when I was pregnant with her. So it's been 9 years. And I am a social worker, and I've been a macro social worker for 20-something years.
Okay, macro social worker, what's that?
So a lot of times people think about social work and they think about individual work,
yes,
clinical work.
That's what I would have assumed,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm more of a big picture person. Okay. Like, how do we think about making change at a more global scale? So. So that hence the macro part
okay.
of it.
Okay.
So I've been a macro social worker for about 20-something years, and I decided to go back to school a couple of years ago, and found the right program through the University of Southern California's Suzanne Duark Peck School of Social Work. And because that particular program is a macro-focused program, okay. So it's focused on the 14 grand challenges. So the American Academy of Social Work has thought about 14 big societal problems that they think social workers can have an impact in solving.
Okay.
And so that's kind of my thing. It's like I really want to, solve.
You found your program and your people.
Exactly, awesome. Exactly. Awesome. And it's also a virtual program. So,
beautiful.
So I get to put my kids to bed, and then because it's 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, so 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I go to class. And so I've been doing that for the last 2 years, and I'm going to be entering my 3rd year in January, where kind of the capstone work starts. Okay. And so this, what we're talking about today, is the research that kind of propels my capstone work. So
okay. Great. And so just a sense of, I know you're going to talk about your work specifically, what are some other examples of macro social work that are a part of the 14 programs? In the
14 grand challenges, yeah. So, I mean, I won't list all of the grand challenges. The grand challenge that I'm specifically interested in is eradicating social isolation. Okay. But there's everything from advancing long and productive lives to ensuring the healthy development of all youth, to achieving equal opportunity and justice for all, eliminating racism, ending gun violence, ending homelessness.
Okay. No, but that's a great example for our viewers just to understand kind of what does this type of work entail. That's great.
Yeah.
So tell us about your research. So and kind of what brings you here today on the show.
So, as I said, I'm studying the grand challenge of eradicating social isolation, which is a big grand challenge, right? Like, and a lot of times we think about social isolation in terms of people who are homebound, and that is certainly a part of it. But it's also about there's the physical aspects of being social isolated, and then there's also the emotional aspects of being socially isolated, and that's where loneliness comes in, and belonging, and your sense of being able to be your authentic self within the context of other people. Okay. And so that's the part that I'm very interested in, is people's sense that they can be themselves in all sorts of different contexts, whether it's with your family, with your friends, in your school, in your place of work, in your house of faith, in your community groups, and in your neighborhood. So, so the neighborhood piece and your local community is something that I'm really interested in. I have moved, I think the average American moves, don't quote me on this, but like 11 times in their life.
Wow. Okay.
And I've moved 15. So I've had the experience of moving, and I'm not, 15 is nothing to, be like,
Sure.
ooh, let's write a book about that. Like there's a lot of people who've moved a lot more than that.
Right.
But I have had that experience of moving and moving to a new place, and what does it feel like to belong when you go to that new place? I grew up in Western Massachusetts, so I'm...
Oh my God, you're from out of town.
I am from out of town. But I grew up 90 minutes west of here in a very small town, and that still feels like home to me. And Westborough now feels like home. But it takes time to do that, and it takes effort. You and I were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's not an easy process.
Sure. Sure.
And so what I'm really interested in is how can we support folks to go through that hard process, both as individuals, but also as a community. So how can we support individuals through that process?
Sure. Okay.
So, yeah.
And so, as part of this work, and we'll have some information, probably showing over us right now here. You're doing a community survey, right? Tell us a little bit about the survey.
So thinking about my capstone project. So to get you prepared for this capstone project, which I can just say a little bit about that before I get to the survey
Sure,
part.
go ahead.
But you should all take my survey. But we'll get to why in a second. So this capstone year is I have to create a solution to the problem. And so the problem that I'm looking at is belonging in your local community and what it feels like to belong. So, or not belong really is the problem, right?
Right.
And so I have to create a solution to that problem. And by the end of that capstone year, it has to be an implementable solution. So it has to be something that has a business plan behind it, has all of the policies and procedures and structure and organization behind it so that it can launch when I'm done. So
just a quick question on that. So is part of your capstone intended to be that someone could take kind of a private approach to a community, or could it take a public approach kind of as a or quasi-public-private?
Could be any of the above.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And I'm not sure what that's going to look like
Yeah,
yet.
right.
So,
right.
And that leads me into the research. So in order to get that to that point of an implementable solution, I need to have done a lot of research ahead of that point.
Sure.
So the last 2 semesters, I've been researching what does this problem look like. And so last semester, I did just all of the research in the literature. So I read and read and read and read. You should see my office. It's ridiculous. And so through that process, I was really looking at what it looks like to belong in local communities. And it's unfortunately a lot of people, less than a quarter of Americans, feel like they belong in their local community. And that really struck me.
Sure.
And so what I wanted to know is, what does that look like here in Westborough?
Yep. Okay.
So, because I also have to create a solution that could be implementable, so I need to have access to the people that I would serve through that solution.
Sure.
And so I live here in Westborough, so why not?
Right, absolutely.
And also Westborough, as I said, is becoming home to me. It is home to me. It is very much home to me.
Sure.
And I plan on staying here for a very long time. And I want to make sure that others who come here and who are already here feel like they can belong here and feel like it's home here too.
Sure.
So that's, hence why Westborough. So to get at that, this semester, I'm all about the primary research of what it looks like here in Westborough. So I'm doing a few different things. One is I'm doing this community survey, which is why I was so grateful that you asked me to be on the show to kind of get the word out about this, because it's a survey that it should take about 7 minutes to complete.
Okay.
At least that's what my husband said when he filled it out.
Well, he's always right, so that's fine.
Right. So anyway, the first 10 questions are all questions that came from the Belonging Barometer, which is a tested survey instrument from Over Zero and the American Immigration Council that they created a survey instrument to test belonging nationwide.
Okay.
And it has a lot of different facets to it, but I was looking at specifically the local community. So what does it look like there? So the only change that I made to the survey instrument was saying Westborough instead of local community. So it specifically calls out Westborough. So that's the first 10 questions. Then there's 2 questions that ask people to describe kind of an experience of what it feels like to belong here, and also an experience where they didn't feel like they belong here, to kind of go a little bit deeper and to understand what this looks like.
Yep.
And then there's about 30 demographic questions. So those are, the reason for those demographic questions are, one is I'm trying to get as much of a representative sample of the community as I possibly can.
Sure.
So by looking at not just the numbers of the surveys that are coming in, but also looking at the demographics,
Sure.
I can see how many folks are older, younger, with certain racial and ethnic backgrounds, languages, abilities, all those things.
Right. Yeah.
But it's also thinking about, what does it mean to belong for different people and different groups of people, and your identities, and how does that play a role into belonging? So that's the reason for all of those demographic questions. So that's the community survey, and I'm trying to just get as many people as possible to fill it out.
Okay.
So this research is not going to be publishable research. So I'm not looking to.
I was going to ask. So what are you going to do with the data?
Yeah. So this all of this data will inform my capstone project. Okay. So I do have to write a big, massive paper at the end of this semester, and then this all will also then go into my big capstone thesis. And but that will not be published data. It is literally to inform my project.
So folks can have an opportunity to help you in this project, but the data won't be published as, this is Westborough's data about belonging.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
great. And certainly it's not identifiable either.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So the survey is completely anonymous. It's through Qualtrics, which is an online survey software program.
Yep.
And I have no idea, because I'm also not a data person. I'm a social worker. I'm a macro social worker. So I do, I have a background in data. I actually do talk about data in one of my regular daytime jobs, but this is not, the tech side of things is not my area of expertise. So I have no idea
So
where.
you have software helping you to
Exactly.
move the data.
Yeah.
Understood.
So, but I can't even piece together who said what. There's no way for me to figure that out.
Okay.
So it is an anonymous survey, and I'm just asking as many people as possible to please take my survey.
Yes. So I'm a fan of Kate's. I should have had Kate is great. Let's help Kate. But asking folks to really let's help her. Right. What a great opportunity to inform a macro social work program and that Kate is working on, and have Westborough have a say in it, so to speak. But I want to go back to kind of Westborough. You mentioned kind of why Westborough, you're here. There's also a tie-in to an organization you're very passionate about. You're also the chair of, which is Westborough Connects. Talk to me about kind of that connection, partnership, and how the work of Connects, kind of fuels your passion as well as ties into your work.
Yeah. So Westborough Connects, as you said, I'm the chair of the board of directors, and I've had that privilege for the last 2.5, almost 3 years. And I have one more year in my term. And so it's been an honor and a privilege for so many different reasons, but part of my sense of belonging here is because of this organization. And so in case folks don't know, Westborough Connects is a hyper-local nonprofit here to try to build a kinder, connected, thriving community where everybody feels like they belong. And we do that through a variety of different community programs. We have Diwali coming up this week that we are collaborating with the India Society of Worcester, and the Borough Sugar Shack to celebrate Diwali here at the Sugar Shack on Thursday evening. Next week is Dia de los Muertos, which a local realtor, Dahlia Islasky, really spearheads and leads. And then we have Kindness Week, which is coming up, which is really exciting. I think everybody knows about Kindness Week at this point.
Right.
And if you don't, you should definitely check us out at westboroughconnects.org. But really, this organization means a great deal to me because so much of the work that I've done for the last 20-something years across all different sectors and populations, when you have a sense of belonging, when you feel like you are connected to at least one other person, you feel like you can keep going. And that's what Westborough Connects is all about. It's about just helping you have that one connection. So we want folks to get involved in any way, shape, or form that looks like in the community. So we, try to lift up all of the other organizations that are out there and encourage folks to join the Rotary, join the Civic Club, join the Women's Club, join the Garden Club, join these clubs because it's really important for your mental health and for your social health. And for, it also helps our community as a community thrive when people join. So we want people to do that. And we also recognize that it's sometimes a little bit hard to do that. It's hard to go to the meeting for the first time.
Yeah, I always say it's hard. It's easy when you're a kid, you go on the playground and it's all about sharing and time. And, you see like all these little acts of kindness and welcoming and belonging. You and I have talked off camera about, I think it's hard. Like you get to this place where like, I got to make friends with someone, right? Like how do I make friends with Kate, you know? And because we bring our, we just bring a lot of baggage and crap, right, to the car, head trash, right, often, as well as real experiences, right, of maybe rejection or not feeling comfortable and belonging. And so it's harder as an adult, right? So Connects creates those intentional opportunities.
Right, exactly. And so it creates those intentional opportunities and it also makes things, tries to make things more accessible so that, when we have Kindness Week, we invite all of those clubs to be a part of it so that when people are interacting with the different events that are happening during Kindness Week, they're like, oh, that was the Rotary? Cool. And like they make a connection with somebody who's a part of the Rotary or the Women's Club or the Garden Club or whatever it is. And so, so that those people become human and become relatable. So that's, a part of what all of this is about. But in terms of this project, another part of the capstone year is, again, making sure that you have this implementable solution at the end. It needs a house. It needs an organization to sustain it. And because some of these solutions might be able to stand on their own. But like I said, it has to come with a business plan. It has to come, with all of the structure and organization that it could launch. And so it's much easier, really, to kind of have it launched within something that's already existing.
Yeah,
So Westborough Connects, the board of directors has graciously accepted my request to be the host organization for this project. So with the intention that the solution that I create would be a part of Westborough Connects at the end.
And obviously it aligns with its mission and all that we've already talked about.
Exactly.
In the time we have left, I'd love to go a little deeper into this whole idea of like social isolation and belonging, right? Kind of, in my mind, I could be incorrect, kind of on different ends of the spectrum, right? So anecdotally, your own views, like what does it mean to belong? And what does it take? Like, I have my own thoughts on it, but you're the doctoral student, right?
So part of this research is that I'm doing this community survey. And then I'm also doing what we call key informant interviews. So I'm interviewing folks from all walks of life across Westborough. And if you're interested in being interviewed, can email me.
Yeah. And we'll have your email up so that folks can contact you directly. And you encourage that, right?
Yes, I definitely do. If people have questions about this research, if people have comments or concerns about it, I definitely want to know. If folks just want to kind of give me their take, that's okay too. Yep. So, I mentioned these key informant interviews because I'm asking that question to folks. I'm asking the question of what does it feel like? What does it sound like? What does it look like to belong in Westborough? And that question is just so amazing to hear people's answers to because every single person has a different answer. So what it means to belong is a very unique experience to every individual.
Sure.
But really, I think what it boils down to is what I was talking about earlier in terms of being able to be your authentic self. So being able to feel like you can put yourself out there and you're going to be accepted as a human. Now, do you have faults? Of course. Do you mess up? Of course. And that's part of being your authentic self, is being able to be fallible and still be loved and still be accepted for who you are. And so that, I joke, like I'm really okay with being awkward. Like I love an awkward conversation. And that's where it's hard to be awkward.
Yeah, and I have to kind of state what I feel like is a little bit of an elephant in the room here, and that is we're also in really challenging times right now. We're recording this on October 22nd, less than 30 days away, 10, 12, whatever the number is, I should know it, is a major election, right? And I know I want to be clear, your survey, your work has nothing to do with the politics in the country, but, we're in really divisive times, right? And so I think, like in my own personal experience, it can be hard to separate the human from their views, right? And that can create kind of put a slice through that sense of like, are we really all belonging in an authentic way? I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's a great question, a great point. And that's...
I'm not sure what it was.
Well,
it was a small soapbox.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's why, I was talking to somebody yesterday about kind of the timing of this research, and it just feels a little weird and also so appropriate.
Sure.
And because we are living in a time where we are more divided than we've ever been. On some levels, and also we are not that far apart on so many others. And so there's this ideological divide, but there's also this affective divide. So meaning that we are polarized from our positions, but really where that is being emphasized in how we feel. So the affective polarization is much larger than the actual ideological polarization. So where the way that we feel about, quote unquote, the other side is much stronger than probably our actual ideological views.
Sure, interesting.
And so it is something that, we all have reasons for why we believe what we believe.
And what we bring to the table in our context and our life experiences, absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Near term as well as long-term life experiences, right?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
How you felt, 20 years ago may not be how you feel today because of a variety of reasons.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And what do you think about this idea that, as we were preparing for the show, to me, I think belonging is a two-way street, right? So I feel like on the one hand, it's kind of like being accepted. Certainly, you talked about that in an authentic way, but I feel like this is my government lens a little bit coming into play here, but it also takes effort, but not just in a community sense, right? To belong with your friends, you got to make the effort to make the time, right? you also need the means and opportunity to belong, right? To be able to make the time. So that's a whole other aspect of like a socioeconomic, forget all the other barriers, like to have the ability to belong. So thoughts on that?
Yes. So it is a two-way street. And it's also interesting, you know, I'm asking folks in these interviews, like, do you think that everyone in Westborough has the opportunity to belong? And the overwhelming response is yes, because there's a lot here. There's a lot of, we are a resource-rich community in both our social infrastructure, so, you know, the things that we have available to us, and also the groups and clubs and organizations. And, you know, we have a very diverse house of faith and house of worship community here in Westborough, and which is unique to, I think, the world, really. But there's a lot here, and we still have a long way to go in terms of helping people find that sense of belonging. And so what is it that we can do to support folks? And I am hearing a lot about transportation, and transportation being an issue, a lot of time. Time is a big one. And also our devices, our technological devices. And so what does that mean to think about? How does technology play a role in how we are interacting with each other? So, you know, whether or not we are sitting in our cars to wait for our kids to come out of their extracurricular activities, we're sitting in our cars on our phones, or we're stepping outside to go pick them up and interact with the other people.
Leaving the phone in the car, and making friends. Right.
You know, in the grocery line, you know, where people are just going like this instead of looking up and looking at each other. And so there's definitely a role for, it's not just something that I'm going to create a solution and everything, it's going to be all daisies for everybody all the time. Like, there's a part of this that we need to take responsibility for our own belonging. And also, there are some folks who, when they do take a responsibility for their own belonging, they still do not feel like they belong. And because of systems perhaps that have been set up that are not allowing for their culture to be respected, or their language to be heard, and or their ability to enter because of cost. So, you know, many of our clubs, there's an entry fee for that membership fee, and which is understandable, and like there's good reasons for that, and also it's a barrier.
It's a barrier. Kate, this has been great. Would love for you to come back at any point during your capstone work to inform the community. I'm sure folks will be interested to kind of follow it. I dare I say again, Kate is great. Let's help her complete this survey. Let's drive some numbers through this show. The link, the QR code are available thanks to our friends here at Westborough TV. Kate's email address has also been provided. If you have questions about her work, you want to provide some thoughts, she truly welcomes it. Kate, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, Shelby. I really appreciate it.
So that's it for this episode of the 01581 Let's Talk. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care of yourself, take care of each other. And you know what? When you're out and about, you know, you see someone, just say hi, right? Like, help them to feel like they're recognized and that they belong, and make that human connection. So take care.